Beep. All right.
Okay.
Talking to Scott Traylor here about the future.
The future. Well, thanks. And as in our conversation, we started off by saying I think nothing dates faster than one's perception of what the future will bring.
Yeah.
However, I do remember a time I was working for a consulting firm in Boston, and this was in the early 80s, and we were talking about the idea of one day computing being ubiquitous.
Mm-hmm.
That being that, computers would exist in the walls, in the floor, in the elements of architecture instead of in a big machine on your desktop.
Right.
And I keep thinking back to that conversation we had that, like, well, will we ever reach, and it feels like we would one day, some kind of ubiquitous computing environment where we would not be walking around with cell phones, the hardware devices, to access our information or to compute, or we wouldn't be sitting at workstations because computers would just be aware and sense where I am and what data is associated with me based upon my actions, where I move, and so forth. But not just for me, but for everyone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I had to say, well, are we there yet? No. Some of the signposts along the way, like cloud computing.
Well, I'd say, the Wi-Fi architecture is part of this.
Certainly.
Right? The Wi-Fi is part of the architecture.
Sure, but I even wonder so much if that's enough. Like maybe Wi-Fi, if it would to evolve further into more mesh networking,
mm-hmm.
that it didn't need to rely on so many hubs, that it could create its own network by other people, just moving out for, like I keep thinking, could ubiquitous computing happen in third world countries? Well, maybe with mesh computing it could.
Yeah. But what's the real advantage of it? The idea of not having any device at all.
I'm not sure. Well, I'm a bit of a data nut, so I love capturing data. I don't like sitting down and having to open up a machine or check in with my phone. I'd love to be able to personally, record my movements, record the meetings, record where I go without having to always open up a computer or something like that and start something up where
Sure.
if it's ubiquitous, it might always know, okay, this particular user, wherever they go, whenever they start something or end a meeting, they want to know.
Well, do you think that would be more? So some people have talked about just like pets now have chip implants.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the more likely path, or do you think?
Well, I don't know for certain. Obviously, who
Yeah.
could? I do wonder, much like how people have moved away from wearing wristwatches because they can rely on their mobile devices for the time and a lot of other things. Whether if we move to a ubiquitous computing environment, that maybe watches could come back, and that chip that we talk about that is being implanted in pets would just be in your watch. And you don't necessarily interact with it. You probably could. But the whole idea about ubiquitous computing is that you're not necessarily tethered to any kind of larger hardware device other than something that tells you your location and who you are.
I've often wondered about a tooth implant.
Oh, that's clever.
Because that would be easily upgradable without serious surgery. You just go to the dentist and he can upgrade you to
maybe even
iTooth 4 or whatever.
Cost of components could be so cheap that instead, when you wake up in the morning and you take your multivitamin, you take your other pill that has that device in it.
Or maybe it's in the multivitamin.
That's right. It's a 2-in-1. It's a blended.
Yeah. That's horrifying. I'd never thought of that.
Well, in fact, when you think about nanotechnology as well, it's like, well, could this be, a future iteration of nanotechnology in some way?
Yeah.
Like Ray Kurzweil's work, when you think about that, some of the things that go on with us biologically could be helped, improved, modified through nanotechnology.
Yeah.
Why not that vitamin?
All right, so let's try and get to a concrete prediction.
Okay. So.
Oh, you're welcome to.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that I always try to avoid like the plague by saying by this date, this will happen. But since this is part of the format.
That's how we do it.
So I remember when I first heard about ubiquitous computing, that was now 25 years ago.
Okay.
And I thought, a good 50, 100 years. I also am very aware of the rapid acceleration of technology.
Yeah.
If I was to say 10 to 12 years from now, maybe.
Okay. So you're talking about, we'll be generous, we'll call it 2025.
Yep.
All right, 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think we'll see in 2025?
we won't necessarily be tethered to the larger hardware devices for computing. That it will just be in the cloud, it'll be in the architecture, it'll be in the spaces around us.
So so you're saying there will be an opportunity for you to have no device? The environment watches us, detects our presence and identity?
Not so much in a Big Brother way. Not in a Big Brother way.
No, but like...
I'll make that bold prediction.
So you'll be... Are you down with that, or do you think you'll need to watch?
I'm down with that. I'm down with that. Well, it's funny, as a content creator, I'm annoyed by the fact that I can't travel with an iPad or some other tablet device that's lighter.
Yeah.
Because those devices aren't necessarily best for creating content other than text.
Right.
So I always need something larger. And so I always wonder, well, the little asterisks on this prediction might be that content creators need to have larger materials. But for lighter kinds of content development, why do I need to carry something around?
Right.
Why can't I speak it into the walls?
Right. So do you think the interface then primarily would be a verbal interface, or do you think there would be visual components that would be...
I think there could be visual components to it, as well as, as augmented reality advances and finds a home and better ways of using it with technology.
So let me just press on this a little farther. So this is hands-free, device-free. It's like the ultimate Connect.
Yeah.
Right. Connect in public spaces. Everything is it's listening, it's watching, it's observing my motion. I interface with it externally. So partly, I presume you would think the homes would be instrumented this way. So I would do a lot of computing in my home this way.
Sure.
Or do you see this as more as public spaces?
Well, this is where I ask myself, am I too aware of the industry, too involved in technology and the advances in computing?
Yeah.
Whereas I'm in that industry, and there are a lot of people who aren't.
Yeah.
And so would they ask for a new home that was wired in such a way to be ubiquitous to have?
Some people want up-to-date technology.
Yeah. Even... Oh, really? But I always question it because it's like, well, I know I wouldn't mind it. I sure would like it. But does everybody want it?
So I guess what I'm wondering, do you see this in public spaces first, the workplace first, or the home first?
Oh, I see it in business first. Definitely see it in business first.
All right.
I see great benefit of having it in business first. But I also, it's interesting, there's this fabulous paper written by Gordon Bell about the evolution of different computing categories.
Yeah.
And, we are at the beginning of an evolution in a new computing category being tablets.
Yeah.
And in a way, one might argue that the laptop computing category, or microcomputing, is diminishing. That it's as one new category comes into being, it oftentimes replaces another.
Yeah.
And so I look at that kind of ubiquitous computing as being another step in that evolutionary chain.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So 2025 ubiquitous computing, and it'll be in businesses
Office first.
first.
Yes.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you.
Awesome.